from CBS Sports.
And first pitch crushing. Deep left field. This is way back. Walk 'em off.
Got a fantasy question? Email fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. Get ready to win your league.
Where fantasy becomes reality.
Now here's Frank, Scott, and Chris.
Mock draft season is upon us. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today. Frank Stampfl joined, as always, by Scott White and Chris Towers. And this time we have a 12-team head-to-head categories league with daily lineups. What's up, Scott? Thank you for hooking me up with the first overall pick.
Yeah, I wanted you to have the pressure of deciding who to take first now that it's not going to be Fernando Tatis, obviously.
Ooh, it will not be. How we doing, Chris? It was a pretty crazy day. All the baseball and football moves going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in professional sports right now. You got a big, MVP deciding matchup in the NBA between Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid as well. So lot of moving parts here. I've got that one on the side screen.
All right, lots going on. We get even a little basketball in there. Who would have thunk it? Anyway, the details for this draft before we jump in. Again, 12 teams, head-to-head categories. One of each infield position. That includes catcher, 3 outfielders, 2 utility bats. On the pitching side, we have 2 starting pitchers, 2 relief pitchers, and then 4 pitcher spots. These are daily lineups with, Scott, do we have a weekly innings minimum?
25.
So it will be hard to pull off a Marmol strategy. For anyone else who is drafting with us right now, we are using the standard 5x5 category. So batting average, home runs, runs scored, RBI, and steals. And then on the pitching side, ERA, whip, strikeouts, wins, and saves. For the draft picks, I mentioned I have the first overall pick. Chris is picking 6th overall, and Scott is down there at number 11. Heads up on the podcast side that this draft will be broken down into 2 different parts, so be on the lookout for part 2. And then for those watching us live on YouTube, hello there. Thank you. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Scott, I am good to go. You can fire this bad boy up. I have the first overall pick.
All right.
It will not be Fernando Tatis Jr. Again, he has a fractured left wrist and he is mulling surgery. We don't know if he is going to have that for sure, but if he does, he could miss up to 3 months. So he is going to drop quite a bit, and it will be interesting to see where he goes in this draft. And I am going to select Shohei Ohtani. I think. Did it go through? Let's see. And it did. All right. So first of all, Chris, we mentioned last week we did a mailbag, and there was a question about daily lineup leagues, head-to-head categories, this exact format. And if you can get both the hitting and pitching production, should you take Shohei Ohtani first overall? And I said, yes, I would do it. And that's exactly what I just did.
Yeah, I mean, the way to look at it would be you're not going to get his hitting production when he's pitching.
Correct.
And there's actually, I saw the other day that Joe Madden is still awaiting confirmation from the league about what Shohei Ohtani's status will be when they play against National League teams, because he will be pitching and they won't be able to list him as a designated hitter. So that's going to be interesting. We'll see when we get there. But yeah, you're going to get, if he does what he did last season, you would get 130 innings, 156 strikeouts, 9 wins, a 3.18 ERA, and whatever hitting stats he got when he wasn't a pitcher. And I believe we looked this up recently and he was better when he wasn't pitching. So yeah, 259 average, 43 homers, 25 stolen bases, excuse me. So pretty good numbers if Shohei Ohtani repeats what he did last season.
And I just love the idea of getting all of his stats any way possible in fantasy, because I mentioned this multiple times this offseason. I had him in 2 pretty important leagues last year. They were weekly lineups, and I just didn't really get any of his pitching stats throughout the course of the season. And frankly, it sucked. So I'm happy to do that here. After I selected Shohei Ohtani, we see Trey Turner, Juan Soto, Jose Ramirez, and Vladimir Guerrero go off the board. Chris, you are on the clock. We'll get to your pick in just a little bit. But Scott, you were not on the emergency podcast earlier today where we reacted to the Fernando Tatis news. Do you have an idea in your mind where he should go in drafts now with his kind of injury status up in the air?
Yeah, for now, I moved him just outside of my top 100 among outfielders. I remember it was behind like that Cody Bellinger, Christian Yelich question mark duo. It may be a little too. I may have not moved him down far enough, frankly, but I was just trying to make a quick change there, and that's top of mind where it led me. But we'll obviously I could react more depending on what else we find out. I do want to really drive home the point for the audience, though, that Shohei Ohtani, for most people, is not going to be the number one pick now. It's only the daily aspect of this
Yeah.
league that makes it so.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, in a normal weekly lineup, standard 5x5 roto league, he's a borderline first round pick, late first, maybe early second rounder. In a head-to-head points league, he drops even a little bit further than that. It's probably more of a mid to late second round pick. So definitely do keep that in mind when first overall here because of that daily lineup aspect. Chris, you selected Bo Bichette. Then we see Bryce Harper and Corbin Burns go off the board. And
in light of Tatis's injury, it does kind of, reinforce the point in having to take Bo Bichette there that I think there's a big 4 in most leagues now and most drafts, and a big 5, I guess, in a daily lineups league where Shohei Ohtani's part of that. But yeah, after I think the drop off from the Trey Turner, Juan Soto, Jose Ramirez, Vladimir Guerrero tier to the Bo Bichette, Bryce Harper, Mookie Betts tier is not nothing. It's not going to kill your season, but your 5th or 6th is not necessarily a great place to be picking.
All right. Yeah. After you selected Bo Bichette, I mentioned Bryce Harper and Corbin Burns. We did have 2 more picks after that. Freddie Freeman goes 9th overall. Garrett Cole goes 10th overall. So I think we're already starting to see the idea that Freddie Freeman will wind up with either the Dodgers or the Yankees, apparently talking to the Blue Jays, and maybe being pushed up a little bit already. 9th overall. Scott, you are on the clock with the 11th pick. Where are you going?
I'm going with Mike Trout. It's between him, Betts, and Kyle Tucker. But Betts and Tucker, they'll contribute in stolen bases, but I'm not confident either will give you a consistent enough stream of stolen bases from week to week for it really to be that impactful in a categories league that scored week to week. So I'd rather get the top tier power production from Mike Trout, presuming he stays healthy, but he reported to camp with a clean bill of health after the calf injury last year. So I'm not that worried about it. I do think it's worth mentioning. We haven't seen Acuna go yet, right?
We have not.
So in addition to Tatis being removed as a viable first rounder, I think recent reports have also taken Acuna out of the running there, or at least they should, because not only did Acuna himself reiterate that he's aiming for a May return from his torn ACL, but just today, Braves GM Alex Anthopoulos said they're not counting on him to play the outfield until late May, which I guess doesn't rule out an earlier return at DH. I'm not exactly sure how to interpret that, though. But, Acuna saying May, it doesn't necessarily mean May 1st, which is not something we've talked a lot about.
He did also, for what it's worth, he did also do the, if it was up to me, it would be opening day kind of thing. So,
right.
There's going to be the aspect of him probably pushing, but that may not be enough to change the timetable either way.
Right.
All right. Scott, after you selected Mike Trout, we see Mookie Betts and Jacob deGrom go off the board. And then either intentionally or unintentionally, you timed out. I don't know if you realized.
No, I took Devers. I don't know why the button wasn't working, but I dragged him to my queue first. So
and that's something you mentioned in the Matt Olson reacts that, Rafael Devers might just be kind of replacing Freddie Freeman in that tier for you, right?
Right. Unrelated to Freeman.
Yeah.
No longer being with the Braves in all likelihood.
He's dead to you.
Yeah, just it's that important for me to fill third base with somebody who I can trust, and even more so than the Austin Rileys and Nolan Arenados of the world. Rafael Devers, who I think actually, according to the data, the Statcast data, actually underachieved last year for as productive as he was. Hopefully he can perform on the level of like a Freddie Freeman, just on the opposite side of the diamond.
I preferred last year when Rafael Devers had like one bad month and was going in like the late third as a result
Yeah.
in coming off of 2020. Preferred that to 14th overall.
Yeah.
Not to say I don't
that would
like
help.
the pick.
That would help if he was going a little bit later on there. Jacob deGrom, I think, is pretty interesting too. 13th overall. We've been seeing some videos of him throwing bullpen sessions already, and he's been named the opening day starter for the New York Mets. Of course, thus far all the news has been good on him. We'll see how his body, how his elbow reacts as we get further into spring training and he starts pitching in games as well. But so far, so good on Jacob deGrom, who apparently will opt out after this season, making him a free agent. Hopefully he can have a healthy season and cash in some way, somehow. Scott, you selected Rafael Devers, which we mentioned, then Kyle Tucker, Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, and Walker Buehler go off the board. And Chris, you're on the clock with 3 seconds left.
Oh gosh, I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. Let me
reset your clock.
I got it.
There
He's
you
in
go.
there.
Okay. Is this the pick you actually wanted?
Yes, that is my top remaining player, Max Scherzer, starting pitcher, New York Mets. Not going to be an opening day starter, which, says quite a bit about the quality that the Mets think they're going to get from him. A little disappointing, but I think he's going to have a pretty good season as the number 2 starter for the New York Mets.
All right. Yes.
That was a joke, right?
That's one of those things that it hasn't really settled in for me yet that Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom are going to be on the same team. That's kind of bananas.
Yeah. It's like Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander.
Yeah. Except arguably even better.
Arguably, yeah. I mean, if they can stay healthy.
Just stay healthy, please. It could be one of the most fun pitching duos.
Acuna still went 16th overall.
Yep.
Which I'm not even sure I want him in round 2 anymore, to be honest.
I dropped him to 26 in Roto as a result of yesterday's news. I'm not burying him exactly, but he's right between Byron Buxton and George Springer, which feels like a good spot. I mean, I'm higher on Buxton and Springer than everyone, but generally speaking, that seems like a good spot in terms of the risk reward involved for Ronald Acuna.
All right. I am on the clock here. Chris, you selected Max Scherzer. That was the last pick we gave everyone. That was 19th overall. Then we got Luis Robert, Cedric Mullins, Austin Riley, 22nd overall. All right. So ahead of Manny Machado. Geez. All right. So you see that third base position scarcity already factored into this draft.
Definitely not disappointed in that Devers pick now.
I am going to select at least one pitcher here.
I guess you guys don't know that third base is about to get deeper. All these Chris Bryant to the Rockies rumors, guys.
I'm
gonna make him my number 5 third baseman if it happens.
Already third base eligible, but yes, he would move up the rankings if he was playing half his games at Coors Field.
Would he be 6 for you guys?
I think I'm with you that I'd move him ahead of Arenado.
Yeah, that would be close. All right. Starling Marte is my highest ranked outfielder, my highest ranked player available. He's dealing with an oblique injury so far. So that's not great. He dealt with an oblique injury last year, so I might have to drop him down a little bit. Do I want to select a hitter? I think that I will do that, and I have to make this adjustment in the rankings, but I am going to go with Yordan Alvarez. I'm going to move him ahead of Teoscar Hernandez and Aaron Judge. Teoscar might be able to chip in 10 to 12 steals, which it helps over the course of the season, but in a head-to-head categories league, Scott mentioned this with Mookie Betts. He's not a huge contributor in that category. And as a result, I'd rather get all the power that I possibly can. And I think Yordan Alvarez can provide more of that than Teoscar Hernandez. So
to kind of elaborate on that, because it's weekly scoring head-to-head categories, stolen base contributions only matter to the extent that they can win you a category in a given week. So those guys who are projected for 15 steals or so, one every other week, basically. I mean, how does that play out over the course of the season? How much can you count on that helping you win the category? I guess if you have enough of those guys and they time their stolen bases right, it'll win the category for you sometimes. But
just for additional context regarding Teoscar Hernandez, he went 14 games before he got his first steal, and he went 9 games with his next one. Looks like another 9 games there. Next one in 3 games, and then he didn't have another one for a month.
Right.
And so it's like, he might get 2 steals in a 5-day span and then go a month and a half without one. So in this context in particular, it's not necessarily clear how much someone who steals 12 to 15 bases is actually helping you.
Right. Yeah. And it's like at that point, if you think there's another player there that can provide a higher batting average or more power consistently, I think that can be the case for Yordan Alvarez. I really like Teoscar Hernandez. Obviously, the Blue Jays lineup is still amazing. So it's not like I don't like him, but I do like Yordan Alvarez a tiny bit more from a power perspective. After I selected Yordan Alvarez to start round 3, we see Shane Bieber, Julio Urias, Matt Olson, and Paul Goldschmidt, 29th overall. All right, so both of those guys go ahead of Teoscar Hernandez, go ahead of Aaron Judge, which I think is pretty interesting. And, Matt Olson, the ADP is 33, according to Fantasy Pros right now. And, maybe this is where he's going to start to live, that, early, mid part of the 3rd round. Now moving over to the Atlanta Braves, of course, theoretically should be a better ballpark, better lineup. So those things can only help Matt Olson potentially in terms of his counting stats. Something we didn't talk about when we did our emergency podcast on him earlier. I guess this is more of like a philosophical question than anything, but Chris, we've seen other big name players change leagues and struggle their first season in a new location. Is that something you might worry about with Matt Olson?
No, I can't say no for sure, because historically players do tend to underperform expectations. I believe I've read a study from Fangraphs that was based on, I think it was based on projections, not ADP, but I think you could probably do the same. And they do tend to underperform when switching leagues, especially hitters. Pitchers actually tend to do a little bit better, which I think makes sense across both ways. Hitters tend to perform better the more they see a pitcher. So, you're generally seeing a new population of pitchers. So, yeah, I think it's a concern, but I don't know. Matt Olson's really good. I think it does introduce some risk that he won't be able to sustain all of the gains he made in terms of plate discipline last season. He almost cut his strikeout rate in half last season from the 2020 season. So obviously that's a lot, but I don't know. I don't think it should change your view of him at all, but it's there. It's something to be aware of.
After Paul Goldschmidt went 29th overall, we see Aaron Judge, Starling Marte, Pete Alonso. Thank God that Pete Alonso is okay. I mean, there were videos that surfaced of apparently he was in a car accident, and it sounded really serious. So thankfully he's okay, and he's back in training camp, and everything's all right with him. After Pete Alonso, Sandy Alcantara and George Springer go. And Scotty, you are on the clock.
Yeah, I think Pete Alonso's truck rolled over a few times.
Yeah,
he got T-boned. It was his wife posted the video of it. It's pretty scary.
So we're actually seeing him go in round 3, which we had talked about, that the ADP was beginning to show that for him. But this is the first time I've actually experienced it in the draft. I'm not going to mess around here at the end of round 3. I'm going to take Salvador Perez, who I've said before is my optimal round 4 target, but I've gotten burned a few times waiting till round 4 for him. And between Fernando Tatis being removed from this range of the draft, this is also the first mock we've done since Zach Wheeler went right after.
Right.
The first mock draft we've done since the revelations about Zach Wheeler's shoulder. And while I think Zach Wheeler deserves to get drafted among the top 10, top 12 starters still, I know he threw off a mound just today, so he might be delayed a little bit, but I think in the long run he's going to be fine. I can't, every one of those guys who goes down, Salvador Perez, where I draft him, I need to move up my expectations.
And it's a good thing that you did take him, Scott, because Brandon in the chat wrote sniped by Scotty. So he was looking to select Salvador Perez, and you got him there 35th overall. At the turn, we see Zach Wheeler and Josh Hader go off the board. So the first closer drafted here as well. Zach Wheeler, it's a good point you bring up, Scott. I mean, this is the first mock draft that we've done since the news came out about Wheeler, and he threw a bullpen session on Monday. Apparently all is well. I don't know, might be, much ado about nothing right now with Zach Wheeler. So maybe even a buying opportunity for him. And then Scott, you go ahead and select your first starting pitcher, Robbie Ray. I wanted to ask, based on your first two picks, you got Mike Trout, and then you selected Rafael Devers, and now you have Salvador Perez. In this format, head-to-head categories, daily lineups, you can choose to punt a category. Do you see yourself now punting steals based on the first four picks that you've made?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. There's one player in particular who I might target if he lasts long enough. That player being Adalberto Mondesi, who, when he's healthy, could single-handedly win you the category any given week because his steals are relentless and always never in short supply. So yeah, I won't necessarily punt stolen bases, but it is more viable in this format, I feel like, than in like a traditional roto league, where the consequences of punting a category, I think, are a lot higher because you're stuck with that bottom score in that category, and it's applied to your yearly score, and it's difficult to make up ground in all the other categories for that. But when you're just talking a week at a time, it's easier to see a path to success that way.
All right. After we did our Matt Olson emergency podcast earlier today, there were a few more things that went down. Obviously, a pretty big trade between the Mariners and the Cincinnati Reds, where Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez were traded to the Mariners in exchange for pitching prospect Brandon Williamson, starting pitcher Justin Dunn, and outfielder Jake Fraley. So as we get further into this draft and Jesse Winker selected, we'll talk more about what it means for their value. And Andrew McCutchen signed with the Milwaukee Brewers not long before we started this draft as well. So it's a fun lineup, the Milwaukee Brewers this upcoming season. We like Adames.
He still crushed lefties last year.
Yeah. We all like Willy Adames. Chris and I like Luis Arias quite a bit. Hopefully Yelich can bounce back, but the Brewers are interesting.
Hunter Renfroe, baby.
Hunter Renfroe for the brand, for the hashtag brand. All right, Scott, after you selected Robbie Ray, we see Xander Bogaerts, Whit Merrifield, and Teoscar Hernandez. Man, I consider taking him 25th overall. He lasts all the way to pick 41. Nice pick there.
That's a pretty great value, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Francisco Lindor goes with the very next pick. And Chris, you are on the clock. Let's check in on your team, see what you're working with here. You've got Bo Bichette, Aaron Judge, and Max Scherzer. Are you thinking another hitter or pitcher here?
We're doing it for the hashtag brand. Let's go. Byron Buxton.
Nice.
My top ranked player by a significant amount. He's 27 overall for me in categories-based format. Took him 43rd overall. He usually goes a little later than that even, I would say, but I actually haven't ended up with enough Byron Buxton this season. So, got to go get my guy.
Get your guy. Of course, Byron Buxton was fantastic last year, truly broke out, OPS over 1,000. People are going to point to, well, he's injury prone. He can't stay on the field. He got hit by a pitch last year, fractured his hand. Of course, dealt with some other stuff, but, we have to consider a hand injury where you get hit by the ball. It's pretty fluky stuff. So.
And I'll point out, because I was pointing this out before last season, part of why I liked him was he had broken out prior to 2021. Not to the same level. He had 1,005 OPS. He was probably the most valuable, the best player in baseball on a per game basis last season, if you include defense and base running. But overall, over the past 3 seasons, you're only talking about 187 games, 684 plate appearances, so not a massive sample size, but he has an 897 OPS. He's slugging 576 with a 299 ISO over the past 3 seasons. So there has been a legitimate power breakout that has lasted over the course of 3 different seasons. I think he has an ISO of at least 250 in all 3 of those seasons. So there's, I think, reasons to buy in on Byron Buxton, even if you don't think he's going to repeat last season, and you should.
Gosh, man, I just got crushed. Lucas Giolito and Aaron Nola go right ahead of me, and I really wanted to get one of those guys as my SP2. It will not happen. After you selected Byron Buxton, we see Liam Hendricks, the second closer off the board, Jose Altuve, and then Giolito and Aaron Nola. I will make the first pick here. I'm going to select Tim Anderson, Mr. Anderson. So I've got Tim Anderson, Shohei Ohtani, Yordan Alvarez, and Brandon Woodruff.
Frank, have you seen The Matrix?
I saw the first 2 Matrix movies. I didn't watch the third one because I heard it was so bad that it wasn't even worth watching. And now I need to watch it because I want to watch the 4th one.
All of them outside of the first one are varying levels of. But the first one is, man, that movie still holds up.
The second one was so bad, dude. Like,
it wasn't great.
It was not good. The first one was awesome. I watched it for the first time like last year.
One of the best movies ever.
It was, yeah. I enjoyed it immensely. All right, I've got to make a pick here. What do I want to do? Marcus Semien, not really excited about that. Feels like a reach for any of these other pitchers. Freddie Peralta, Lance Lynn.
Yep.
I haven't done this yet this offseason, but let's try it out. I'm going to select JT Realmuto and lock up what I still consider one of the top 3 catchers in fantasy baseball. He'll chip in 10 to 12 steals. I think still give 20 plus homers. Pretty good ballpark lineup to hit in. So through 5 picks, I have 4 hitters and 1 starting pitcher. JT Realmuto, Tim Anderson, Yordan Alvarez, and Shohei Ohtani. Kind of an interesting build. Not really one that I go for, but we'll see how it turns out.
So you're sticking with Realmuto over Will Smith as your number 2, because I think Chris and I both recently moved Smith ahead of Realmuto. I think I actually kept Realmuto ahead in points leagues because his skill set is a little better suited for that. But yeah, it's at least a close call between those two, especially if you think that DH spot is going to give Will Smith more chances to hit. I don't know. Maybe Max Muncy will have to be the permanent DH. I don't know.
Perhaps. Yeah. I think it's really close. Realmuto versus Will Smith. I think it comes down to roster construction. How do you like to put your teams together? If you want more pop, maybe more counting stats, but a little bit lower batting average, I think Will Smith is probably the answer for you. JT Realmuto, again, 20 homers, 10 to 12 steals. I think he'll have a better batting average than Will Smith. I still think the counting stats will be very good for him as well. So just comes down to what you prefer in that range. But I think they should both be 5th round picks is probably about right for Realmuto.
I think Realmuto probably needs to bounce back, I think, to justify this. Because last season on a per game basis, he was just kind of okay. I don't know. He was definitely a lot better in 2020. And I'm not sure how much I buy him bouncing back, I guess, is my concern. That's a big part of why I have Will Smith higher.
Fair enough. All right. What else is going on in round 5? I selected Realmuto at pick 49. Then Trevor Story. I feel like it's kind of weird that Trevor Story hasn't signed yet, but there are still a few big names out there. Story, Freeman, Carlos Correa. After Trevor Story goes, we see Wander Franco, Lance Lynn, Marcus Semien, and speaking of Will Smith, Chris, you go with him. You select him 54th overall.
Yeah, wasn't my top player on the board. Not where I have him ranked, but I haven't drafted a catcher early except for Salvador Perez yet. So I want to see what it looks like when I do that. And with you taking Realmuto, I figured this was probably my last chance to get him.
I want to mention Marcus Semien going here in the middle of round 5 in a categories league, no less, where there's not a ton of pitchers pushing hitters down.
It's too late. That's way too late.
I think we may be getting to a point where he's been pushed as a bust so much that I might actually start drafting him because he goes.
I absolutely wanted to take him if he had fallen one more spot. I'm pretty disappointed. He's my 31st overall ranked player in this format.
Yeah, so you passed on him for Tim Anderson, Frank, and then Trevor Story went ahead of him. Wander Franco went ahead of him. I'm going to start seeing him with rose-colored glasses here if that continues.
And it's weird because, he's not going to hit 45 home runs again. He's not going to be as good as he was last season. But he's been that good 2 of the past 3 seasons. And the one outlier season is the weird 2020 where he played 53 games. He's played 377 games over the past 3 seasons. And he's got an 854 OPS, a 162 game pace of 12 steals, 37 homers, and a 268 batting average. I get he's been a bust for me, not in my most recent column, but I do think, if he's going to fall past the first 3 rounds, I think he's a value.
I think I would expect even less power than what he's projected for over the past 3 years, Chris. But if he hits 28 to 30 homers, 270 batting average, 12 to 15 steals.
Yeah.
That's still a pretty valuable player. So
I mean, he hit 33 in 2019. I know the batted ball data doesn't necessarily support what he's done, but I don't think Globe Life Park,
Globe Life Field
is like such an extreme pitcher's park that like it's worse than Ring Central at the Oakland Coliseum of Alameda County,
Right.
Coliseum, California.
And Simeon just hit 33 home runs at that stadium,
Yeah.
whatever it's called, in 2019. So, I have my doubts about Marcus Simeon, and I think it's possible he is a true bust, kind of like he was in 2020. But I mean, I can't say that with enough conviction to pass on him in round 5 when he performed like a second rounder last year, maybe even a first rounder.
Probably a first rounder with the counting stats that he had.
Yeah. The ADP for Marcus Simeon, according to Fantasy Pros, is 33.4. And again, in this draft, he lasted to pick 53. So nice discount there. Let's catch everybody up. After Chris selected Will Smith, the catcher, then Freddie Peralta, Adalberto Mondesi, 56th overall, Nolan Arenado, Chris Sale, Scott selected Corey Seager, then Nick Castellanos. And to start round 6, we see Javier Baez. And Scott, you are back on the clock. And I will chant punt, punt, punt. Punt steal, Scotty.
Well, so I had to take Corey Seager with my last pick in round 5 there. I see him fall to like round 7 in some of these 15-team drafts, and I'm not sure how that happens. It never happens when I'm drafting. And I'm not saying because I take him. I try to wait until round 7 to take Corey Seager, but it just never seems to work out for me. So I go ahead and take him in round 5. I'm going to take Ketel Marte here because I'm worried about the
get your own guy
at second base going forward. Like, I kind of wanted to take a pitcher there. I only have Robbie Ray so far. Like, Kevin Gausman is there. We are about to see a teardrop at starting pitcher, but I'm going to go a little extra aggressive on hitter here and see how it plays out for me. I haven't filled up my whole infield yet. I still have first base. I have one outfield spot filled. I, of course, have catcher filled with Salvador Perez, but Devers at third, Seager at shortstop, Ketel Marte at second base. I'm looking good in batting average already, I would say. And got a nice offensive foundation here.
And don't worry, Scott. There are plenty of first basemen that you could draft later on. So 5 of Scott's first 6 picks there are hitters. The only pitcher is Robbie Ray. We'll see how that pitching staff turns out. What else do we got going on? Jose Abreu goes 63rd overall. Then the man, Charlie Morton, goes after that. Giancarlo Stanton. Chris, you are on deck. And this is a perfect time to remind everybody that March Madness is here. We want you to compete with us in a bracket challenge game. I'll be in there. Scott will be in there. Chris will be in there. And we want you as well. Join us at cbssports.com/FBT brackets. And the winner gets a $100 gift card to Paramount Plus. That's not all you get, because the winner will also get an opportunity to choose which listener league they want to be in this season. With Paramount Plus, you're able to watch the NCAA tournaments, tons of soccer from the Champions League to CONCACAF, golf majors in the spring, and NFL football in the fall. Also, we're excited for the debut of Halo, which is streaming March 24th exclusively on Paramount Plus. Head to ParamountPlus.com/Halo to try it for free. But back to the brackets. Who enters just one pool? You can also create a group to compete against friends and fill out your bracket for the chance to win a trip to the 2023 Final Four. It's free to enter. You can play on the CBS Sports app or at cbssports.com/FBT brackets. Okay. After Giancarlo Stanton, only one pick was made. Thank you. Chris Bryant, 66th overall. And Chris, you are back on the clock.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that Chris Bryant went. I would have been willing to take him. Honestly, like with the rumors to the Rockies heating up, I would have been willing to take him here. But I wasn't planning on it. I was hoping I could wait another round. So that's a little bit disappointing, but I ended up taking Kevin Gausman as my number 2 starting pitcher, because I feel like Will Smith, Bo Bichette, Byron Buxton, Aaron Judge is a good enough start on offense that I can, push for that second pitcher.
Alrighty. After you selected Kevin Gausman, we see Jack Flaherty go off the board as well.
I wanted to comment on Charlie Morton going there 64th overall ahead of Kevin Gausman and Jack Flaherty, which is certainly well ahead of ADP. I wonder if he's somebody who we're going to see the ADP move up now as people see him pitch in spring games and are more confident he'll be full go after breaking his leg in the World Series last year. I do think if that's why people were causing him to slide, it was overblown, but we may have been underestimating the effect that was having on people's approach to Morton.
Yeah, it's definitely a fair point, and not really something we want to hear because, of course, all three of us love the value of Charlie Morton this season. The ADP is 87, and again, he went 64th overall in this draft. So Charlie Morton, a potential riser here throughout spring training. Let's catch everybody up. There was just one pick, Brian Reynolds, the latest after Jack Flaherty and Kevin Gausman. 2 picks ahead of me. I have a couple of ideas in my mind, players that I want to draft. I'm always scared to put players in the queue because I feel like other people who are drafting with us are watching us live on YouTube. I mean, whatever, it's a mock draft, but I still don't want people to take my players. All right. One of them, of course, that I wanted was Eloy Jimenez. So I'm very happy to get him here at the 6-7 turn. He is my second outfielder. Oh, I just love the idea of Eloy Jimenez and Yordan Alvarez on the same fantasy team. That is just so fun. Okay. I want to take a pitcher. Do I want to take a closer or do I want to take a starting pitcher? I am going to select a starting pitcher. Now I've got to adjust the rankings a little bit because I'm drafting out of order here and I feel like a fraud, but I'm going to select Max Fried ahead of Logan Webb. You know, some of the stuff that you've said this offseason, Chris, about the shoulder injuries with Webb last year. It's, you know, the fact that he was kind of a one-hit wonder. Can he repeat? There's a lot of helium on him right now. I think I got to drop him down just a little bit. And Max Fried, man, the past couple of years, whenever he's pitched, he's been really, really good. So it's close between those two, but I do think I'm going to move Max Fried ahead of Logan Webb. And
Max Fried was the top pitcher in my queue, or top player in my queue. So a little frustrated by that one.
Take that, Chris. And we are in the beginning of round 7 again. I selected Max Fried, and the very next pick is Jose Barrios to our friend RJ White. And you know what? I say this every draft. RJ always takes Shane Bieber. No surprise. He's got Shane Bieber on his team. So he's got Bieber, Aaron Nola, and Jose Barrios, his first 3 starting pitchers, to go along with Trey Turner, Manny Machado, Trevor Story, and Randy Arozarena. So it's pretty good. It's fun. Some power, some speed, pitching. Nice little balanced start for RJ. And the next pick here is Frankie Montas.
Even if I didn't agree, he's my boss, so contractually obligated to say it
Great
was a good
team.
pick.
Great team. Even better guy. Love him. RJ. Wow, what a guy. All right. After he selected Jose Barrios, I mentioned Frankie Montas, Joe Musgrove, Justin Verlander. Okay, so we have quite the pitcher run. All 5 picks.
This is not making me feel good about that Ketel Marte pick.
Yeah, glad I took Kevin Gausman with my last pick.
Yes. Chris, you are on the clock. We will get to you in just a second. All right, so you selected Brandon Lau. Yeah, Scott, man. Oof. All the pitchers that you like are getting pushed up the board now. Charlie Morton.
I know. It's
Justin Verlander in round 7.
It had been a little light early on. I think it was only like 10 pitchers in the first 3 rounds. So we're making up for lost time a little bit.
All right, let's check in on your team here, Chris. You selected Brandon Lau. You now have Will Smith. You have Brandon Lau at second. You got Bo Bichette, Byron Buxton, Aaron Judge, and your 2 pitchers are Max Scherzer and Kevin Gausman. What do you think so far?
I think this does highlight the difference between a roto versus a head-to-head categories, because in a roto league, I'm not sure I would love this start. I'd be really light on batting average and not great at stolen bases. But in a head-to-head categories league, you know, I think the consistent power that, you know, Aaron Judge and Brandon Lau should provide, and even Will Smith from the catcher position, I think you can live with the fact that this might be light on batting average.
I don't think you're so bad though, Chris. I think
Bo Bichette. That's really nice.
That is sweet.
I don't care what anyone says.
I think Bichette and Judge can hit 280 plus for you, and if everything works out for Buxton again.
Yeah, but I think like the most likely outcome is probably Will Smith and Brandon Lau hit below 260, maybe below 250. I guess I don't know about Smith. That might be underselling him a bit, but yeah, it's not a strength for sure.
Okay.
I love loading up on power hitters in this format. Like, I don't need any base stealers necessarily, but if in those 10 hitter spots, if I can get a guy projected for 30 plus homers and as many as I can, I feel good about my chances of winning that category and RBI every week, and probably having a chance in runs as well. You don't have to worry about overkilling a category so much in this format, because obviously that just means you're winning. That just means you got to win in the bag in that category every week.
Right. Yeah. And as we've talked about many times, every time you hit a home run, you get a run scored, you get an RBI. So try and stack up those home run hitters, and hopefully they help you in at least those three, and maybe even batting average as well. Let's catch everyone up. After Brendan Lau went, Max Muncy, 79. The ADP on Muncy is 112.6. So another player maybe rising here with some optimism throughout spring training. Then Dylan Cease, Logan Webb, and Cody Bellinger. Scott, we going with some pitching here?
I don't know that we are. I'm thinking about it. I think I'm going to go Jorge Polanco here and move Ketel Marte to my outfield. And that'll give me some shortstop insurance too, with Corey Seager there. Okay. And this is where Fernando Tatis goes. That's about where I said I was going to rank him. Christian Yelich is still on the board. A couple other outfielders that I might have ahead of Tatis, but I think this is at least the point where you need to start thinking about it, I guess.
Yeah, I moved him down a little further than that, but
Yeah.
it's, when you talk about range, like given how much uncertainty there is right now about what treatment option he's going to go with and what that would mean, I think anything from 85 to 120 probably makes sense depending on your personal level of risk aversion.
Just looking at our top 300 overall on the website. Again, you can always find our rankings on the website if you want to check them out. We've got Roto rankings. We've got head-to-head points rankings. Scott has Tatis at 108th. I have him at 113. Chris has him at 115. And this is still an evolving situation and a lot of moving parts. So as we get more information, I'm sure we'll move him up and down the draft board. But he does go 85th overall here, the first pick of round 8. Scott, you mentioned that you selected Jorge Polanco. Alex Bregman also went just before Tatis. And then you selected Yu Darvish as your SP2. So you've got Darvish and Robbie Ray as your first two starters.
Yes, I do. I felt like I needed somebody with that ace strikeout upside, and just hoping Yu Darvish bounced back from a very difficult second half. But we've seen him have stretches like that in the past. I had considered Christian Yelich with that pick, and I had considered going a little early for what I think is going a little early, I think, for Kyle Schwarber, who's a player I like the value of, but he tends to go like 20 picks later than this. But I already have two outfielders, and starting pitcher, is dwindling. So I went ahead and took Darvish here, and just crossing my fingers that the second half last year was just a blip for him.
All right. Aroldis Chapman was the very next pick. He goes 87th overall as the third closer off the board, ahead of Raisel Iglesias and Emmanuel Clase. Iglesias, by the way, has not reported to camp yet. He's behind because of personal reasons, and we're seeing a lot of that right now. So I don't think that it's cause for alarm yet, but something to keep in mind.
I thought that it wasn't clear what Raisel Iglesias was late for. I know Anthony Rendon was dealing with a family issue, but I thought they said they didn't have any details on Raisel Iglesias. I could be wrong. But
we could both be wrong, Chris.
It's entirely possible. I mean, it's more likely that I'm wrong.
So this was 5 hours ago, and this is on his CBS player page, away for personal reasons.
Okay.
So That comes according to Sam Blum of The Athletic. All right. After Aroldis Chapman, Carlos Correa, Bobby Witt, who is arguably the top prospect in baseball, but certainly the top fantasy prospect. There's a chance he could be up with the Royals on opening day. And then Alek Manoah and Chris, you select Christian Yelich, who's one of your guys this year.
Yeah, one of my guys. I've talked about it a lot, but I generally think a lot of the batted ball stuff last season was pretty promising. He still hit the ball really well. Hit it on the ground too much. It was a little bit of a reversion to his pre-breakout form when he was with Miami, but the quality of contact was still really good. The strikeout rate regressed from the really bad 2020 levels. So for me, I'm fairly confident he's going to be good when he's healthy. And so, at this point, like, I do still think he has first round upside, and a little batting average upside if he helps, if he's right.
And a new teammate, as I mentioned, in Andrew McCutchen as well. After Christian Yelich, Shane McClanahan, also known as Shane O'Mac.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
And then Raisel Iglesias, Mitch Haniger, and JD Martinez. And I am now on the clock. As I battle through every mock draft, I never wind up with a good second baseman, or more often than not, I don't. And so I'm staring at my team. I don't have a first, second, or third baseman to this point. I've got 2 starting pitchers. I don't love the second base position right now.
India's still there.
India is there, indeed.
I've poisoned Frank's mind.
Yeah, that's true. You have. I am going to select Ryan Presley. I get one of the top tier closers, what I consider one of the top tier closers. And then to start round 9, do I want to go with Jazz Chisholm or Jonathan India? Let's see.
Chisholm.
I think both in my bust column.
Chisholm.
Oh, how dare you?
I think we all have Chisholm as a bust, right?
Not me.
Oh,
Not
okay.
me, fellas.
All right, go right ahead then.
But do I want to do it, or do I want to
I don't know.
take somebody else? Do I have enough batting average to support a Jazz Chisholm pick? I think so. I've got Tim Anderson, Eloy, Yordan Alvarez. I think JT should be fine. Yes, I will select Jazzy boy, and see how it turns out. Do I still have it? No, I've got to update my soundboard here.
Can you get the like weird free jazz that played in Homeland when Carrie was going through like her episodes? They're like bloop, 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 every time we talk about him.
I don't have that.
That's my official request. I
do have I could find it, but last year I used to play this for the Jazz man, Jazz Chisholm. Jazz. All right, I know you guys are a little bit more worried about Jazz Chisholm, and I get the downside argument. I do think he has a ton of upside too. I mean, could hit 20 homers with 30 steals. I don't think that's out of the range of possibilities. What does the batting average look like? 240, maybe 250 if in a good season. So I worry about the batting average, but the tools are there for Jazz Chisholm. He's just got to put it together. And also he's super fun to watch. Like if we're just talking about like, you want to draft a team of fun players, man.
Yeah.
Jazz
for that aesthetics category. You're going to dominate that, Frank.
Yeah. In the blue hair category, Jazz Chisholm, he'll get you every time. All right. So he goes 97th overall. Then Carlos Rodon.
Carlos Rodon.
I was at least debating who's in the back of the line.
It's the right range.
Yeah. I had the thought after I took you Darvish. Do I feel better about Carlos Rodon now than I do you Darvish?
I mean,
maybe I should have taken him instead.
The thing about you Darvish, especially if you zoom in over the last like 3 years, is that like, Scott, the way you phrased it was like he had a blip in this, or hopefully it was just a blip in the second half, but like his whole past 3 years has kind of just been a series of blips, like good and bad. There hasn't really been much more than like a month of consistency or 2 months of consistency either way, good or bad. It's been like 2 bad months. The last, it might have been 3
final
months.
3 months of 2019, the 2 months of 2020, the first 3 months of 2021.
There was 8 months in between them,
That kind of has been his whole career too. I think it's
Yeah. It kind of makes sense when, he's got like 7 pitches and he throws on his off days with his left hand and all that stuff. It's kind of, there's a lot going on there. A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, for sure. Let's catch everybody up. Lots of picks going down. Jonathan India goes 99th overall. Then Yasmani Grandal, Trevor Rogers, Chris selected Emmanuel Clase. Then Edwin Diaz, Chris Bassett, now with the New York Mets, Luis Castillo, who knows, could also be on the move here.
Mhm.
And then Clayton Kershaw and Scotty, you are on the clock.
I'd been waiting to bring up Luis Castillo because I went out of order in my own rankings to take Darvish ahead of him. And then we all seem fine with Carlos Rodon going ahead of him. The Reds are dismantling their offense, it appears. And Castillo's probably a negative for WHIP now. I don't know that this is the format for him. If he gets traded, it'll help. But yeah, I might need to lower him in my rankings, actually.
Trade him to a warm climate, please, or somewhere that they have a dome, because typically struggles in the cold weather is Luis Castillo. All right. Clayton Kershaw goes. Scotty, for the brand, you do it again. Kyle Schwarber.
No, I'm happy he was there. How many picks was that since my last one? Like almost 20.
Yeah, he'd been the top player on my rankings for about 3 rounds. So good
like
value
the power hitters. I like them.
Very interesting to see where
could
he
be
was.
added to the Blue Jays lineup too. A lot of reports about that.
Wow. Jeez. I mean, at some point, is there too much power in one lineup?
No.
I feel like if Kyle Schwarber goes there, it's like, geez, man, there's just so much power in that lineup.
Maybe
that would
for
be
the
a Yankee
Yankees
fan thing to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but I did want to ask, does the thought process behind why we're all more, to borrow one of Scott's words, sanguine about Carlos Rodon, does that also apply to Clayton Kershaw going at a 106 overall?
I feel more confident in Rodon now just because of the contract. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't, but getting the extra year, more money annually. I know that he's younger, obviously, but he's also been more hurt throughout his career, I guess, arguably, than Clayton Kershaw.
Inarguably.
Yeah. I would rather have Rodon. I think it's close. But
right, but the logic behind it, that's the team was willing to give him that guaranteed money. Does that make you less concerned than you were beforehand?
Yes, definitely. If he got a 1-year prove it kind of deal, that was gonna cause me to.
Well, it's hard to know with Kershaw because it was a 1-year, $17 million deal, but would he have signed for 3 years anyway? It sounds like he's close to retirement. Either way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there are other factors there. And would he have given any other team but the Dodgers the chance to sign him for a 1-year deal, considering he's been there since the beginning? That's fair, but I think there's, just given the way things went down for them at the end of last season, I think there's more reason to be worried about Kershaw. Like the prospect of Tommy John surgery was actually mentioned for Kershaw. When Rodon, it was shoulder inflammation. Shoulder inflammation that probably wouldn't have concerned me if it hadn't cost him velocity. But the fact that
for me, it's just his history. Anything is extremely concerning in my opinion, just because he's had so many injuries.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you could say same thing about Rodon, right? I mean, he's dealt with.
That's what I meant, Rodon.
Oh, okay.
Really interesting and topical pick here, guys.
Yes. Let's catch people up. Kershaw last round, then Scott took Kyle Schwarber, then Joey Votto and Shane Baz at the 9-10 turn, then Blake Snell, Josh Donaldson, 111th overall, and then Tommy Edman goes off the board. And we were reacting to the news live when it happened on yesterday's podcast, and I brought up that Josh Donaldson was going to push Justin Turner, who has an ADP around 150. Donaldson was going around pick 200. So I thought he would rise about like 40, 50 spots, but 90 spots on Josh Donaldson, I don't know. Seems pretty high. What do you think?
It's too early, but that's most. It's not too early because he can't be worth that pick. It's too early because you don't need to take him there.
Mhm.
But I do think the move to Yankee Stadium and the Yankees lineup helps. I think it does make him, increases his chances of putting together better counting stats because that was one place that he fell short last season. And he, still crushed the ball. He still seems like a good bet for 30 plus homers. It's mostly a one health and two, a value question here. I don't mind him going up to like 150, 170, but this is too early, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Josh Donaldson went ahead of Anthony Rendon. I mean, Scott, we're not doing that, right?
No, we're not. And I had actually had the thought, okay, this just him being in the headlines right now, him getting that Yankees hype, is that going to cause people to take a second look at him, see, oh my gosh, look at this guy's exit velocity last year. It was fourth best in the majors. And is it going to artificially boost his value just by virtue of being in the headlines more? And at least based on the first draft we've done since that trade, it would seem that there may be something to that.
All right. After Josh Donaldson, Tommy Edman, Franmil Reyes, Anthony Rendon, Chris selected Nelson Cruz, who is now with the Washington Nationals. There are 2 utility spots in this league, so perhaps slight boost in value there for Nelly Cruz. Then Willie Adames and Jesse Winker, who goes 117th overall. And let's talk about Winker, who was traded to the Seattle Mariners. Look, the guy is really talented, strong batting average, OPS. He's had trouble staying on the field, and he cannot hit against left-handed pitching. Still, overall, a good player. Chris, what do you think about the move for Jesse Winker to the Seattle Mariners?
Net downgrade for both him and Eugenio Suarez. It obviously matters a lot more for Jesse Winker, but yeah, I think the concerns are that one, Great American Ballpark is just a really good place to hit. Jesse Winker's quality of contact is so good that you would hope it doesn't matter all that much. But I think I think the main concern is that just he doesn't hit lefties all that well. He's really bad against them. He, has still walks a decent amount. I looked up the numbers over the past couple of seasons. Let me get them in front of me, but it was like 12% walk rate, 25% strikeout rate. But the problem is he just doesn't hit the ball in the air or with particular authority against lefties. He hits a lot of pop-ups. He just generally doesn't hit the ball as well. And so you're talking about like a 600 OPS against them for his career. It's going to make the production not as good as the like triple slash line. The triple slash line the last 2 seasons has been really, really impressive, like 970. But one, the Reds have shielded him against lefties occasionally, not a ton, but 23.8% of his plate appearances over the past 2 seasons have come against lefties. Joey Votto, left-handed player for the same team, was at 29%. So, I think that tells you a little bit right there. And so that gap may be enough to, give his numbers a little boost that isn't necessarily present in the actual production you'll get from him. I think the counting stats are probably going to lag. And yeah, I think he's, less likely to be a power standout in Seattle. It's just not as good of a place to hit. So all in all, I think
I have a hard time believing his performance won't suffer to some degree when the venue changes that dramatic. And for what it's worth, his OPS for his career about 100 points lower on the road than at home.
Yeah.
And the road, not all
it's a
of
better
those parks
lineup,
were as
which
bad
helps.
as Seattle's.
Yeah, it helps that it's a better park or a better lineup.
Yeah.
He does have
True.
better hitters around him, and that lineup should turn over more than the Reds did last season. So the counting stats should be better. But I worry that he's going to have a really, really nice triple slash line. Like he's going to hit 280 with a 900 OPS, but it's going to be like 27 homers and 88 RBI and 88 runs. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. The fact that he doesn't hit lefties well, I think holds him back.
Well, it might be suited better in this format than any other format, a daily lineup league where when he's either sitting against lefties or frankly, even if he's in the lineup against the lefty, you could just bench him that day, assuming you have, a worthy hitter on your bench. So I think if there's any format to do that, it would be.
And this is late enough. I mean, what do you go 120th overall, 117th? That it's that's not far from his ADP. It's a little lower, but it does make it so that the risk is muted a little bit. So I don't hate it. It's just I do think the trade is a negative for him.
All right, let's catch people up. After Jesse Winker, Justin Turner, Will Smith went in round 10. And then at the 10-11 turn, I selected CJ Cron as my starting first baseman and Pablo Lopez as my SP3. A lot like Jesse Winker. I think with Rockies hitters in this format, daily lineup leagues, you can choose to bench them when they're on the road and obviously reap all of the benefits when they're home playing in Coors Field. The rest of round 11, Jordan Romano, then Wilson Contreras, Jake Cronenworth, Dalton Varsho. Chris selected Eduardo Rodriguez, then Michael Kopech, Kenley Jansen, Marcell Ozuna, 129th overall. I do wonder if he's someone that can start to climb as we see more of him throughout spring training. Alex Verdugo, and then Scott, you are on the clock here in round 11. And let me remind everyone what you've got, and that is 3 starting pitchers. You've got Darvish, Robbie Ray, and Blake Snell, and a whole bunch of hitters.
Yes, I do. I don't have a first baseman, though. I'm looking at Josh Bell here, the profit pocket. Rhys Hoskins is there as well. Plus, the person picking after me has a first baseman. Brief delay for personal reasons. I'm just going to take Bell because I don't have time to think through it any more than that. I was thinking about actually taking Giovanni Gallegos. I'm starting to feel a little bit better about his chance at, like, now that we're getting some actual words from people in organizations, including the Cardinals organization. Like it sounds like they're actually using the closer word with Gallegos, and that makes me feel a little more comfortable about drafting him as a save source. But I'm just seeing he's delayed for personal reasons, and I know that was an issue for him when the season started abruptly in 2020, in 2020 as well. So let's see. Brandon Youngblood after me. He went Framber Valdez and Nathan Eovaldi, 2 starting pitchers back to back. So this is normally the point when I would absolutely take Ranger Suarez and accept the ERA help. And I'm a little worried about my ERA between Yu Darvish and Blake Snell. I may do it anyway. Also thinking about Tyler Mahle in the hopes he gets traded. Because, he wasn't great for Cincinnati last year. You know what? I'm going to do it. I want to see where Ranger Suarez goes of his own, independently of me, where he goes. So I'm going to take Tyler Mahle. Get some extra strikeouts there for a guy who was pretty light on aces early in the draft.
And we are rooting for a trade for Tyler Mahle because, as the overall numbers, they wound up pretty good for Mahle last year. The splits were drastic. He was much, much better on the road. So if we can get Tyler Mahle out of Great American Ballpark, I know over the weekend there were some rumors about the Mets being interested in him before they acquired Chris Bassett. So I'm sure some other team can get involved on Tyler Mahle if they would like to. Before we get into the rest of the picks, what we're going to do here is sign off hour 1 and then pick it up with part 2 of the mock draft. But we're going to sign off here and we'll be back right after this. All right, we are back here for hour 2 of our head-to-head categories mock draft. And we are in round 12. And so far the picks have been Nathan Eovaldi, Tyler Mahle to Scott, then Marcus Stroman, Rhys Hoskins, the profit pocket. Let's go. It is now completed. Jared Kelnick and Chris, you are on deck. You are now on the clock. So Joey Gallo goes with the very next pick. Let's check in on your team, Chris. You can use a first baseman. You can use.
Yep, I was hoping Rhys Hoskins would be there. That was a snipe of some sorts.
So not great for you. You need a third baseman, but we're in the same category here, Chris, which is not a great one to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 3 hitter spots and 4 pitcher spots in my starting lineup to fill. I feel more comfortable with the hitters who are going to be available, in the future. So I'll go ahead and take Giovanni Gallegos there, RP. This is kind of the point where I've got Max Scherzer, Kevin Gausman, and Eduardo Rodriguez. If I wanted to pivot to a relief pitcher heavy build, I've probably got enough starting now to get away with that. You're probably going to get at least one start per week from those guys, so you can expect Scherzer, Gausman, and Rodriguez to give you 15 innings per week at a minimum. So that gives you just about enough flexibility. Maybe one more starter.
And for
Not
me,
saying that's what I am going to do, but it's an option.
for me, Giovanni Gallegos kind of represents the end of a tier too. Like I think that he has true ace closer upside. If he's just named the closer and they don't mess around with it, he could save 30 plus games and deliver elite ratios and lots of strikeouts.
Yeah, things are much scarier after him.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the other closers and you're right. It's a little scary there. All right, after Giovanni Gallegos, Blake Trinan, as of now, Kenley Jansen is still a free agent, but if he signs elsewhere, then Trinan will be the closer for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Sean Manaea, and then Ranger Suarez, Scott. So you wondered where he was going to go, and this is still the range. Round 12.
Didn't even last. Still the range for Ranger. Didn't even last a full round.
Who I'm surprised hasn't been drafted yet. Actually, 2 first basemen that I had on my bust list. But Jared Walsh and Ryan Mountcastle are still there, and this is much later than they typically go. So I wonder if that's starting to be those concerns are starting to be reflected in their prices a little more. Mountcastle's ADP in NFBC drafts is 110.4. That's actually up over the course of draft season, and Walsh is 115.4. So we're 30 picks past that. It's kind of interesting.
I should mention that probably a third of the participants in this particular mock draft are volunteers from my Twitter following. So they probably they may subscribe to our way of thinking more than the average drafter would.
Okay. I am on the clock. I've made one of my picks. It was Lourdes Gurriel. So I have filled out my outfield: Yordan Alvarez, Eloy Jimenez, and Lourdes Gurriel. I'm very happy with that. Wow.
Yeah, it was another situation where he was staring at me for like 3 rounds as one of my top players, but I only have one utility spot left. I don't know if Lourdes Gurriel is enough of a difference maker to consider filling that yet, so that's why I passed.
Okay, and with my next pick, I selected Mark Melancon. So, as I just mentioned, Giovanni Gallegos, kind of the end of a tier. Mark Melancon, look, he was really good last year. I think eventually he's gonna fall.
There are more interesting closers out there than that.
Than Mark Melancon.
I mean, the thing is, I'd be fine with Mark Melancon because I think he's proven steady and stable enough. But it's the Diamondbacks, they had like a 30-game losing streak at one point last year. It wasn't literally a 30-game losing streak, but it was like 29 of 30 or something like that.
They did go at least 1 full month without a save.
Well, that's because they didn't have Mark Melancon, guys. So now they're going to be a lot better, obviously.
I'm sure
I mean, look, they only...
But no, like the guy who just went, Corey Knebel.
Yeah, look, the Diamondbacks only had 22 saves last season. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen again. That's an abnormally low number, even if you think they're likely to be a sub 60 win team again. That just won't happen again. There's bad luck involved in that too. So I think he can be a 30 save guy if he keeps the job all season. It's not that rare to see 30 saves on a bad team.
Yeah, for me, you're just paying for the security, right? So Mark Melancon is undoubtedly the Diamondbacks closer. Two picks later, Corey Knebel goes off the board, pick 147.
Yeah,
and
I would prefer Knebel to Mark Melancon. I don't think there's much separating Knebel and Gallegos, who I don't feel like, I was just saying it sounds like the Cardinals are actually using the closer term with him, but their history with him is to keep him out of the role as much as they can help it. So I still worry about job security there. Go ahead.
I was going to say the Phillies over the weekend, they did name Corey Knebel the closer for now, quote, for now.
Right.
And then after that, they signed Jarius Familia, and on Monday they signed Brad Hand. I don't think that Brad Hand is good, but he does have closer experience. So, like there's enough there to just kind of a slight sliver of doubt.
We haven't mentioned the real reason to be concerned about Corey Knebel, and I don't think it's performance, and I don't think it's losing the job necessarily. I don't think Juris Familia or Brad Hand are really big threats to him. I mean, there aren't many pitchers that have had more injuries over the last 3 or 4 seasons than Corey Knebel. Even last season, he only pitched 30 innings. He was amazing, or 25 innings. He was awesome. He looked great. But he couldn't stay healthy last season either as a reliever. So that's the concern, is that there's just very little reason to think at this point in his career, even pitching as a closer or a reliever, that Corey Knebel is going to be able to stay healthy. I mean, man, he's never had more than 76 innings in a major league season, and that was back in 2017.
All right, let's catch everybody up. After I selected Melanson, Jared Walsh, Corey Knebel, Adam Wainwright, Jorge Soler, Chris selected O'Neal Cruz, 150th overall.
Right. If Chris is going to do this in round 13, I'm just never going to get to draft O'Neal Cruz again. Not that I blame him necessarily. It's just you want to make sure you get O'Neal Cruz. And he has the kind of upside to justify it. I get it. I'm just saying, obviously the ADP is much, much, much lower than 150th.
The pick that happened 3 picks later is making me wonder whether it was the right pick, because I was between Patrick Sandoval and O'Neal Cruz, and I was thinking, take one, hope the other one comes back. And now it's, would O'Neal Cruz have been able to come back the next time I picked? This is really highlighting how much I hate picking in the middle of drafts this season. I don't know, more than usual. I feel like when I'm sitting here in the middle, I just it feels like I have too many choices to make. Whereas when you're on the end of the round, you kind of have to reach for your guys, but at least you get the guys you want. Whereas I feel like there are more of those hard choices when you're picking in the middle.
All right. After you selected O'Neal Cruz, we see Taylor Rogers. Another expected closer, for the Minnesota Twins, of course. I mean, he's done it before. He had a 30 save season back in 2019, and his numbers last year were completely ridiculous. So I like Taylor Rogers quite a bit. Then Luis Severino, Patrick Sandoval, Gary Sanchez, who is now with the Minnesota Twins. Interestingly enough, there was a report after the trade that they expect Sanchez to play a lot of DH for them. So could lead to more at-bats than we're used to seeing for a catcher-eligible player. I think the plan as of now is he's the backup catcher to Ryan Jeffers, lots of plate appearances as the designated hitter for the Minnesota Twins. Scott, you select Camilo Doval. Then we see Craig Kimbrell and Austin Meadows at the turn. We are into round 14, and you are back on the clock, sir.
Give me those sluggers. Give me Hunter Renfroe. Can't realistically count on him being there beyond round 14. And Jorge Soler's already gone. Marcelo Zuna's long gone. I'm running out of late round. The late round home run sources that I like to collect. There's still Adam Duvall, of course, but he's for sure going to be a drain on batting average. There's still Luke Voigt, but there are questions about how much he's going to play. So Hunter Renfroe felt like more of a priority here than maybe reaching a little for another save source after just drafting Camilo Doval the previous round.
All right. And then the very next pick is Jake McGee. So one round after Camilo Doval goes, Jake McGee goes off the board. So maybe some confliction there about who the Giants closer is.
We're betting on different guys having that role for the Giants.
Right. Again, Camilo Doval late in the season, he basically took over the role as the closer. He finished out more games in the postseason than Jake McGee did. So it seems like they're trending in that kind of youth movement with Doval, who throws extremely hard. He's got a nasty slider. There's a lot of
that. I haven't seen anything since camps opened regarding Doval, but I went back and read a lot of the literature surrounding him during the Giants playoff run, and everyone on the Giants beat seemed convinced this is the guy now. So I at least think he's going to be the guy to begin the year, and whether or not he can hold on to the role, that remains to be seen. But he certainly has the stuff for it if he throws enough strikes.
Doval versus McGee is also very much playing into I mean, sports fans in general, but fantasy players specifically are well-known predilection for liking one type of player over another. And Camilo Doval, everything you guys said, he's younger, he's got a wicked slider, all that. And Jake McGee just goes out there and throws fastball after fastball, and he's been around for a while, and it's boring. And so it's very much a situation where we could just be talking ourselves into the more exciting guy at a much higher cost.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm talking about what I was reading from the Giants beat, not just schlubs like me.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Scott. You're not a schlub.
I would never trust a schlub like you.
Speaking of Jake McGee, it is worth mentioning, again, this is a head-to-head categories format, and I think we'll see it later on in this draft, but there's going to be relievers that are drafted that are not expected to get saves. I mean, it's just guys that you leave in your lineup and they'll give you strong ratios and strikeouts. And I guess Jake McGee, even if he's not the closer per se, he could fall into that category. The numbers were fantastic last year. 2.72 ERA, 0.91 whip, almost a strikeout per inning, but when he pitches, he should be very good. All right. What else happened? Joe Adell goes 160th overall. So just throw all ADP out the window here. Ryan Mountcastle, then Noah Syndergaard. Chris, you select Carlos Carrasco. Interesting. Then Trent Grisham and Chris Taylor. Chris, are we at the point where you just need to load up on pitchers, and so that's why we're going with Carrasco? Because usually he lasts about 100 picks after this.
I mean, this is around where I have him ranked. I don't know about you guys, but I do think this is the point in the draft where ADP doesn't matter so much. Like, you can talk about values, but Patrick Sandoval also goes 80 picks later than he went in this draft. So it's the kind of thing where if you're at this point in the draft and you have a need or you have a player that you specifically want, I think you just go get them. So that's what I did with Carlos Carrasco. I think it was the best starting pitcher on the board. So it was a fairly easy call for me there, even though the value may not be ideal.
Okay. And then after Chris Taylor, we see Dansby Swanson, and then Mike Clevenger goes, and I am on the clock for 2 picks. I still do not have a starting third baseman.
Like the Clevenger pick that RJ just made.
Mm-hmm. And we're definitely not just saying that because he's our boss.
No.
I
just queued him up. And, yeah.
Man, third base is just barren. What do we do? Should I just wait? Yeah, I think I'll just wait.
I think you and I probably have probably the same guy that we're hoping to fill that third base spot with. If I know the way you're thinking about it,
I have another player that I like to fall back on too, but I know who you're talking about as well. I'm going to select Logan Gilbert with one of the picks. I have him in my breakouts 1.0. I like what we saw at times last year. He was inconsistent. I think that he has all the pieces. He's got the fastball. He's got the 2 secondary pitches. He just got to put it together. Has the prospect pedigree. Throws really hard. I do like Logan Gilbert quite a bit. He is my SP4 to go along with Brandon Woodruff, Pablo Lopez, and Max Fried. I've already got 2 closers on my team. What can I go with here? Should I take another starting pitcher? I think I might.
There's going to be...
There's no hitters that I really, truly want here.
Luis Garcia.
I am thinking about him.
That's the pitcher at the top of my draft board.
I think I could use more power, though. So I'm going to pull this guy up the board, and I'm going to select Matt Chapman. So that was player that I was referring to, where if I miss out on everyone usually, yes, I like Luis Arias. We'll see if Chris gets him a little bit later on. But
you needed a third baseman, right? Like,
yeah.
You're picking at the end here. There's no way Matt Chapman was going to make it all the way back to you. In a league with 2 utility spots. Potential 40 homer guy? Come on.
Well, I hope you're right. Thank you.
And I very much hope he gets traded.
Look, it seems like that is a very distinct possibility with everything that's going on in Oakland right now. So they ship out Matt Olson. They ship out Chris Bassett. I think Chapman could be next. I think Sean Murphy. I think Ramon Laureano. Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas. I think all these guys could be on the move. And Oakland A's look like they're ready to hit a complete rebuild. And I think 1 year further removed from the hip injury can only be a good thing for Matt Chapman. So hoping he gets
That would
back
be the
on
hope.
track there. After I selected Matt Chapman, we are in round 15 now. Trevor Bauer goes off the board. He is still on administrative leave, and we will continue to follow what happens with him throughout spring training. Then Spencer Torkelson and Scott Barlow, a closer who I know you like to select, Scotty.
Yeah, it was going to be my next pick. That's who I passed up to draft Hunter Renfroe. So, yeah, going to have to figure something else out there when it comes to saves. Might not be able to wait much longer to grab Dylan Floro, who's less exciting in this format than I think straight up Roto. So I'll think about it.
And while you think about it, we will go to Chris, who's on the clock.
I am on the clock and looking to fill first base. There's a couple of guys that I like, but I'm going to go with an upside pick. I'm going to push Alex Kirilloff up my board a little bit and take him. The batted ball metrics and quality of contact stuff was all pretty uniformly very good for Alex Kirilloff in his rookie season. The overall production wasn't quite there, but the hope is that the wrist surgery that he had last season to repair an injury that's really been bothering him for 2 or 3 seasons now, dating back to his time in the minors. Hopefully that can help him put that past him and start to actualize some of the power potential that I think is there. I think he could be a very good hitter. And so for waiting to the 15th round to take a first baseman, I don't think he's a bad consolation prize.
All right. After, I think there was one other pick in there that I missed just before Alex Kirilloff. Yoel Moncada went off the board. Then Dylan Carlson and Adolis Garcia from the Texas Rangers. Again, we are in round 15. 2 more picks, and then Scott is on the board here. We'll see what happens.
Can I we're probably about 150
Raymond Atherton took Dylan Floro.
Probably about 150 picks until either of these guys might matter. Maybe longer. So we're talking like 15 team rotos. But we talked about the Jesse Winker trade earlier and didn't get all that deep into it, but I'm just gonna throw out there. I'm going to be taking Aristides Aquino and Jake Fraley late in some deeper roto leagues. I actually think Jake Fraley's skill set is really interesting. And playing in Great American Ballpark, there's an outside chance that Jake Fraley could have a 2020 season. I'm just going to put that out there. All right? Do with that what you will.
Speak it into existence, Chris. Jake Fraley has put up some interesting seasons in the minors. Back in 2019, he hit 298, 19 homers, 22 steals, a 910 OPS. The year before that, 4 homers, 11 steals, a 962 OPS. That was only 66 games. So, Jake Fraley, a name to watch there. Aristides Aquino, the Punisher. You remember the
I was also. Oh, go ahead.
No, the streak he went on a couple of years ago. I mean, that was like memorable stuff. He was ridiculous.
He's got 29 homers in 85 career games at AAA. He's played 486 plate appearances at the major league level. He's got 31 homers and 10 stolen bases. So I was mostly just inspired to mention him when I saw Adolis Garcia go off the board because I think he could be that kind of player this season.
All right. After Dylan Floro went, Enrique Hernandez potentially lead off for the Red Sox once again. And Scott, you selected Brendan Rodgers.
I know. I never get a chance to draft him, and I feel like I'm always the one. I'm the one who's been hyping him the longest here. It's especially interesting to me. I drafted him after Enrique Hernandez went off the board, but I won't harp on that too much. It's to fill a second utility spot for me. I already have second base and shortstop both backed up. So I did not need Brendan Rodgers, but I'm just not used to seeing him this late. And I'm happy to capitalize on the value for what I think is pretty good upside in Colorado.
All right. 2 Yankees go at the 15-16 turn. DJ LeMahieu and Luke Voit. We know that Matt Olson will not be playing for the Yankees this season. There were a lot of rumors about that throughout the offseason. So one name off the list, and we're one step closer to Luke Voit once again starting for the Yankees. We'll see where Freddie Freeman and Anthony Rizzo wind up. But there's a chance. There is a chance. Scotty, you're back up.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Andrew Kittredge here.
Okay.
Give me some saves, hopefully. Give me great ratios, more hopefully, which non-closing relievers I think are most valuable in this format.
I just added a whole bunch of them to my queue.
Yeah.
We're at that point in the draft where you can start thinking about the non-closing relievers. Because the thing is, it's not just that they'll give you great ratios, but also that there's a chance that Andrew Kittredge ends up just getting 25 saves for the Rays. There's a chance Paul Stewald ends up getting 35 saves for the Mariners. You know, these guys are, it's not just that they're really good, but also that they're good enough that if they get the opportunity, they'd probably just run with the job.
All right. After Scott selected Andrew Kittredge, we see Aaron Savale, Mitch Garver, 184th off the board. It's just great value. We spoke about him the other day on the podcast and now with the Texas Rangers, but the playing time could potentially be moving up, trending in the right direction for Mitch Garver. So this is a little bit ahead of his ADP, but again, I think it's a perfect time to select him. So nice value there with Mitch Garver. Then Luis Garcia, starting pitcher for the Houston Astros, goes 185th. And then Michael Conforto, who is still a free agent, has been linked to varying locations in terms of what it could do for his fantasy value. We've heard Coors Field, Colorado. We've also heard the Marlins and Marlins Park. So two very opposite ends of the spectrum for Michael Conforto potentially. And Chris, you are up in round 16.
Thank you for the reminder.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger on Luis Arias, take him to fill my third base spot, and feel really good about that at 187th overall. I imagine Scott even might not hate that. Not the best starting third baseman you can get, but what Luis Arias did from really was about June 1st on, if I'm remembering correctly, was quite impressive. It was not that dissimilar to what Jonathan India did last season. It was a pace of about 25 homers, 90 plus runs and RBI, decent batting average. He makes contact. He walks a decent amount. The underlying numbers, in terms of the quality of contact metrics are somewhat pedestrian for Luis Arias, but he's got that same kind of pull-heavy approach on fly balls that Jonathan India does that can help him maximize the power that he does have. And I think he is likely to be fine. I don't think Luis Arias, is going to be a star, although I do think there's, potential for him to hit 280. But I think he's fine. He's just not going to hurt me.
Okay. Luis Arias, Chris and myself, we're in. Can he hit 280 with, 20 homers, 25 homers, 7-8 steals? I think it's possible. And again, the Brewers lineup is fun. Like it's pretty deep now. They bring in Hunter Renfroe in the offseason. They just signed Andrew McCutchen. They still have Christian Yelich. They still have Lorenzo Cain. So, I mean, there's names there. Colton Wong up at the top. He's a solid.
Arias is a good OBP league guy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if he's a top 12 third baseman in OBP league, but he walked 11% of the time last season. He had a 345 on base percentage. So, there's a chance that in an OBP league for Roto, he's a legitimate 4 or 5 category guy with no real weakness.
After you selected Luis Arias, we see Sonny Gray go 188th overall. Now with the Minnesota Twins, then Lou Trevino. I wonder if Trevino could be on the move too, man. The way that they're rumored to be shopping everybody. I also read an article recently on The Athletic that AJ Puck might work his way into some save opportunities. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah. Throws hard, but just has not been able to stay healthy. Yeah. Big, burly, left-handed pitcher. He's interesting.
Yep, definitely someone to keep in mind more in a 15-team Roto league, but someone that with one of your last picks you should be throwing a dart at with AJ Puck because he could be really, really good out of the reliever, especially.
Okay. Lou Trevino, I mentioned. Then Jordan Montgomery goes off the board. I am on deck. And now I'm up. Miles Straw. It's pretty late. 191st overall at the end of round 16 could potentially provide you 30-plus steals if that's what you need at this point in the draft.
I wouldn't be willing to sacrifice the power in a league where only 10 hitter spots are used.
Yeah,
personally.
harder to justify in this format, especially being that stolen bases aren't at such a premium. But look, 191 is 191. You know, there's not really a bad pick here.
I'm just saying, I would not build my team. There is zero chance I'd have a build in a head-to-head categories league that included Miles Straw.
Well, Scott, I mean, look, if you grab as many power hitters as you often are trying to in these drafts, then
No, you're not going to talk me into it, Frank. There is no context. I'd rather just be even that more confident I'm going to win home runs in a given week than potentially undermine that with a Miles Straw pick.
And look, I don't know that Miles Straw is a potential category winner like Adalberto Mondesi, but I mean, again, he could steal 30 plus bases, so it's not.
I got to bring RJ down a peg, Frank.
Yeah, that's
well. And Miles Straw's another guy who OBP leagues he's better than batting average leagues. He's probably not going to be a particularly great batting average guy, but he does walk a decent amount. I always struggle with this profile though, the zero power, but good plate discipline guys, because you can lose the good plate discipline part really quickly if pitchers just start attacking you relentlessly. I feel like it's an approach that can often have a short shelf life. I feel like Michael Bourne was kind of similar to Miles Straw in that way. And he was the kind of guy who, when it went really quickly.
all right. Well, Miles Straw, if you're listening, bud, I tried to talk you up, but these guys are just not having it. So
Hey, look, a 5 outfielder roto league would be different. I still don't love him there, but it feels like less of a sacrifice.
At the 16-17 turn, I selected Eddie Rosario, who, again, I mean, the guy is just undervalued. I think he's rock solid. I don't want him to wind up with the Marlins, but I don't think it really matters where he winds up. I think he's a pretty damn good ball player. And then to start round 17, I selected Alex Wood. I do have a rule that I like to leave every draft I do with at least one San Francisco Giants starting pitcher. So whether it's Wood, Dave Sclafani, or Alex Cobb, I do like to get one of those guys. And then the next pick is Paul Sewald. So whether he's the closer or not, you leave him in your lineup. You hope that he gives you those ratios, maybe picks up some wins, lots of strikeouts as well. So it's late enough. It's round 17, pick 194. After that, Cal Quantrill and Hyunjin Ryu go off the board. All right, Chris, you are now on the clock. John Means Business was the very next pick. And what do you got? I feel like, what do you need? Starting pitching?
No, I feel like I'm probably set on starting pitching. So I'm going to go with one of those non-closing relievers that we talked about. And I'm going to go with Devin Williams. Has been one of the best relievers in baseball over the past couple of seasons. Obviously, you know, there was some skepticism coming off 2020. He wasn't as good last season as he was that year, but still 87 strikeouts in 54 innings. He's got maybe the most bonkers pitch in baseball. He throws his changeup like 65% of the time and had the second highest whiff rate in the game with the changeup last season. So Devin Williams, just a really strong pitcher for this format when you want to have enough relief pitchers, whether they're closers or not, that they're going to be in your lineup every day.
All right. After you selected Devin Williams, Jose Urquidy, Lucas Sims, and Lane Thomas go off the board. Lucas Sims was in the news recently. There was a report over the weekend that he wasn't ready for the start of training camp, and then he kind of shot that down. He said, no, I'm not dealing with any arm injuries. So Lucas Sims a little bit up in the air right now. The Reds had 10 different relievers earn a save last season, so it was a messy bullpen. I'm pretty excited about Art Warren if he can get an opportunity. Lots of strikeouts. Did have saves in the minor leagues as well. Who knows? Maybe I'll even select Art Warren.
Hang on. RJ wants to defend himself here in the chat. He says, I wouldn't take Straw if it wasn't a daily lineup league. I like keeping him on the bench and deploying him late in week as needed or when others have an off day. Feel like I can steal a win here and there in steals category using him a couple times a week like that. So that's his defense. And I hear it. Point well taken. Yeah, That's all I'll say.
I mean,
about
look,
that.
he's going to hit at the top of the order, presumably for the Guardians, as long as he's good enough to. And there's not going to be a lot of competition in regards to being good enough in Cleveland. So, there's going to be opportunities at the very least.
All right, a couple more picks going off the board here. Robbie Grossman, Scott selects Ken Giles, and then Zach Gallen at pick 204 to finish out round 17. And Zach Gallen was in the news for the wrong reasons on Monday. Apparently, he had off-season shoulder issues, and that is in conjunction with all of the elbow, forearm stuff that he dealt with last year. So, lots of risk involved with Zach Gallen. It's pretty scary right now.
That is scary stuff. I probably just not going to draft him.
Right.
Period. You never say never, right? Because if it's your last pick or something, maybe. But I imagine somebody will take him before I'm comfortable taking him, because he's already the single pitcher who I'm most concerned about having Tommy John surgery, even beyond like Clayton Kershaw or Jacob deGrom. And then he had shoulder surgery in the offseason. Are you kidding me?
And honestly, I have performance concerns about him. I don't know if he's going to be the potential ace that we hoped he would be, because I'm not 100% sure at this point whether he's got, the kind of plus pitches that you would really need to be more than just, a good pitcher, even without the injury risk.
Oh, but it wasn't shoulder surgery for Gallen, right? He had shoulder inflammation in the offseason. Still scary.
It was bursitis, which again is shoulder inflammation. Scott, you selected two potential closers, Ken Giles and Joe Barlow.
Yeah, you've really won me over to Ken Giles. I think we're going to draft a lot of him.
Nice.
Because obviously the Mariners never settled on a closer last year, but like Ken Giles, that as we talked about recently, like he's the sort of reliever who's not really effective in any other role, and he's been a very effective closer coming off Tommy John surgery. So who knows? But I'll take a shot on it this late.
But a long time removed from Tommy John surgery at this point.
Sure.
Yeah, I think he had it late in 2020.
Yeah, definitely prior to last season, because the Mariners signed him with the understanding that he would miss all of last season.
Right. All right, yeah. Look, he has the closing experience. I know it's a very crowded bullpen right now. They've got Drew Steckenrider, they've got Paul Sewald, but man, if Ken Giles is right, he might be the best of the bunch. After Scott selected Joe Barlow, we are in round 18. Kyle Hendricks goes off the board. Tony Gonsolin. All right, Scott, people are listening. Some Scotty sleepers there. Raimel Tapia, Avisail Garcia, and Chris, you select Tristan McKenzie. Oof. All right. So this is a nice round for some starting pitcher sleeper / breakouts.
Do you resent him saying oof there, Chris?
I don't know why he would. Frank's a Tristan
know
McKenzie guy. I thought he liked him. I did also have Tony Gonsolin.
That was a good
positive,
by the way.
That was
okay, good.
Okay.
I was like,
because I did have Tony Gonsolin and Ken Giles in my queue. So, I was, and Lucas Sims since my last pick. So those were all guys I was considering. And I think Tristan McKenzie's right in that group. I wrote about him for Breakouts 2.0 last week, and it's a bet on a guy who's shown two really good pitches and has had really interesting flashes so far in his major league career. So that's why I like Tristan McKenzie there.
Mm-hmm. All right. After you selected Tristan McKenzie, Steven Strasburg and Gregory Soto are off the board. Two more picks, and then I am up. So I should start thinking about what I would like to do. I've got 5 starting pitchers. That includes Brandon Woodruff, Max Fried, Pablo Lopez, Logan Gilbert, and Alex Wood. I've got 2 closers in Ryan Presley and Mark Melanson. So a few different directions I can go in here. Brian Hayes goes 214th overall. I would have selected him if he made it to me here, and then just kind of play whoever's performing well between Brian Hayes and Matt Chapman at my third base position.
Yeah, I didn't even think about him because he's usually gone 50 picks earlier before I'd ever think about him. So that's
his ADP.
This is more the range where I draft Brian Hayes.
Yeah, his ADP in NFC drafts is 139.7. So he went
It's
80
crazy.
picks later than he normally does. And yeah, that's the point where it's like, yeah, we have a lot of questions about Brian Hayes at this point, but there's no downside risk at 215 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that I want a pitcher.
Not a belly itcher.
I think we're gonna just load up. Let's go Giants, man. Let's do it. Alex Wood, Alex Cobb.
Good
And
pick.
then I am going to, I believe, select a reliever. We're kind of dwindling on closer candidates here. But I believe I did this in our previous head-to-head categories mock draft as well. I'm going to select David Bednar. And of course, I would love for him to be the closer of the Pirates, but really, it doesn't matter all that much because I think that he's going to be really good when he pitches, whether it's setup man in the ninth inning. He was amazing last year. So lots of strikeouts, good ratios for David Bednar. Again, I'm just going to leave him in the lineup, daily lineup league. Give me those ratios, those strikeouts. And if he's the closer, good. Give me saves too. I'll take those. After David Bednar goes Adam Duvall. So one of those sluggers, Scotty, that goes very late. Of course, he's going to hurt the batting average, but 30, 35 plus home runs. Seems very doable. And then Tarek Skubal, the next pick, and Gene Segura. We're flying here in round 19. Joe Ryan goes
Oh, I wanted JoJo.
JoJo. Who calls him that? Do you call him that?
I just did. That's the first time I've said it or heard it.
The invisible fastball from Joe Ryan. Very interesting pitcher. He's one of these vertical approach angle darlings where I cannot really explain it very well, but it's basically where the ball crosses the plate from a pitcher's perspective. You could read articles from other much smarter people who have broken it down before. But yeah, that's basically how he hides his fastball well. And despite throwing 91, 92 miles per hour, how he's able to have as much success as he has in the minors and so far in the majors as well. Chris, you select AJ Pollock. I think a fantastic pick at this point.
Could be sneaky good in this format in particular, the daily lineups, if you're going to be on top of that stuff, because AJ Pollock, obviously, I don't think we expect him to be an everyday player at this point, but he's been fantastic the past two seasons. 290, 888 OPS, 162 game pace of 35 homers, 97 RBI, and 10 stolen bases, 78 runs. Like, if you just put him in your lineup when he's out there, you're probably going to get really good production from him.
Yeah, and hopefully give him some opportunities to DH as well. Universal DH now. Yeah. So, look, I know Max Muncy needs it, and we've talked about Will Smith maybe, but AJ Pollock can work his way into that mix. If he's swinging a hot bat, they want to keep his bat in there. So, good stuff there. After AJ Pollock, Ryan McMahon, another player in this format. You can choose to just play him when he's in Coors Field, reap the rewards there. Alex Colomé, unfortunately, the opposite. I don't know if you want to pitch him when he's in Coors Field, but you need the save, so I get it. And then Riley Green and Drew Steckenrider off the board. Scotty, you are up. Let's check in on your team, see what we got going on. I assume lots of power.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you've got Salvador Perez, Josh Bell, Jorge Polanco, Rafael Devers, Corey Seager in the infield, then Trout, Ketel Marte, Kyle Schwarber, Hunter Renfroe, and Brendan Rodgers in your outfield and utility. You filled out all of your pitcher spots. So, all right, you got some flexibility. What are we doing?
I filled out all of my pitcher spots, but with only 4 starting pitchers, I believe. So I've yet to draft my 5th starting pitcher. I don't normally draft this guy, but I don't think he's normally here at this point. Anthony Desclafani will be my 5th starting pitcher, hoping that his success from last year carries over. I'm a little skeptical of it, but the Giants obviously playing a huge park, which can help keep the ERA lower, even for a pitcher who's predisposed to fly balls like Desclafani is.
It's got one word of advice. Don't start him against the Dodgers.
100%.
Fair enough. Yeah.
He had like a sub-3 ERA against everybody but the Dodgers last season. And he had, an ERA over 10 in like 3 or 4 starts against them or something wild.
Well, a daily league makes that more possible. In fact, I could sit him on the road in general if I so choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think regardless of the format that you play in, you could start Esclafani pretty regularly, just not against the Dodgers, as Chris mentioned. At the turn, we get two San Francisco Giants, Brandon Crawford and Brandon Belt, two Brandon Giants. So whatever that's worth to you. We are in round 20. Brandon Belt, for what it's worth, I think does excel in this format. When he plays, he's been awesome, but particularly against right-handed pitching, if you can choose to just throw him in your lineup whenever he's facing those righties.
The problem is he doesn't play nearly as much as he should because he's not that bad against lefties, but Gabe Kapler is just hyperactive manager. So he takes him out of the lineup a lot, even though he was homered on, he was like on a 50 homer pace last year, Brandon Belt. Yeah. But yeah, in the daily league, if you're willing to actually check the day's lineups every day and commit to doing that, to actually setting your lineup every day, which I can never do in a daily league, part of the reason I don't like them, then yeah, Brandon Belt, he should probably go earlier than this.
Yeah, I mean, both Brandon Belt and Brandon Crawford probably should go earlier than they do. There's a lot of skepticism about what they did last season. In Belt's case, you know, there were signs of it in 2020 as well. It's not just like a 1-year thing. And the thing with Belt is, one, he's one of those guys that just always seems like he's been held back by his home park, and it seems like some of the park factors in San Francisco have shifted to be a little more hitter friendly in a way that's helpful to him in particular over the last couple of seasons. But also, he's just always had really good batted ball data, and so it's not necessarily surprising that, you know, he's still, you know, quite a productive player in a smaller role.
All right. After Brandon Belt went, Scott selects Zach Greinke, then Adley Rutschman, Kyle Finnegan, Casey Mize, Lance McCullers, who will not be ready for the start of the season. He is behind because of that forearm injury that he was dealing with in the postseason last year. So not a great start there for the Houston Astros. Adley Rutschman, I believe, just went ahead of Keibert Ruiz and Tyler Stevenson. So that is interesting and something we don't really see often in these drafts.
Yeah, a lot of people in this draft have just been content to wait for whatever catcher they get. Mm-hmm. There are still 4 people in a 12-team league without a catcher.
Yeah.
So it's surprising to see all 3 of those, Rutschman, Ruiz, and Stevenson, available this late. But you get, I mean, I can't really disagree with the strategy.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily take him over Ruiz, but I think it makes all the sense in the world to take him over Tyler Stevenson. You know, Adley Rutschman could just be up by opening day. I mean, that's one of the things that they changed with the new CBA is that, you know, not only are there incentives to having players called up from opening day, they, you know, if you have a player who's on the opening day roster who finishes in the top 5 in Rookie of the Year and 3 in the Rookie of the Year, 5 in MVP and Cy Young, you gain an extra draft pick as a result of that. But also, there's the potential that you could call Adley Rutschman up on May 15th. He could finish 2nd in Rookie of the Year voting, and he gets the full year of service time anyway. So that's you know, at least a little bit more of a disincentive for teams to leave their guys down, especially someone like Adley Rutschman, who I don't think anybody really, like, he's a catcher, but he's probably ready.
Oh yeah, I mean, he was ridiculous last year in AA
got
and
to AAA.
Yeah, the plate to
everybody
fantastic. I mean,
and everybody raves about the soft skills, the way he handles pitchers, his approach to the game. There's no real questions about any of that stuff with him.
All right, after Lance McCullers was the last pick that I mentioned. Chris, you selected Garrett Whitlock, and Tanner Houck goes. So Whitlock and Tanner Houck go back to back. You don't necessarily know what their role is going to be, but in this format where I think that these players gain a little bit more value, Chris, because they're kind of like swingman, reliever, starter guys. And I think regardless of what their role is, they should be pretty good when they're on the mound. So you just kind of plug them in and see what happens.
Yeah, and you can get 3-4 strikeouts at a time from guys like that if they're going to be multi-inning relievers, you know, who pitch. Like, it's not out of the question that you could have a week where Garrett Whitlock pitches 3 times gives you 6 innings and 8 strikeouts, and all of a sudden, you've got that in addition to whatever you've got from your starters.
Mm-hmm. All right. I am back up on the clock. I have a few ideas of what I would like to do. I'm scrolling down, seeing if there are any closer eligible players left or any type of relievers that I want to target. One of my picks is going to be Aaron Ashby, who was in the news on Monday because he is going to be stretched out as a starting pitcher. Okay. Something is happening with my screen here. Scott, if you could select Aaron Ashby for me, that would.
Nope, not just you.
Oh, all right. So
see if I can get this thing. See if I can get this going again.
Okay, so we've hit a wall. I went to refresh the draft, and for those watching along here, you can see this up on your screen. But I'll take that out of there for now until we figure this out. I was going to select Aaron Ashby. He was in the news because he will be stretched out as a starting pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers, and people smarter than me, prospect people, are very excited about Aaron Ashby. He's a left-hander, throws hard, has a wicked slider. Don't know too much about a third pitch for him, but I do like the potential. And whether he's a starter or not, like we were just saying about Garrett Whitlock and Tanner Houck, you throw these guys in your lineup in this format and see what they can do.
All right, I think we're back up here. And just to clarify, you say he's being stretched out to start.
Mm-hmm.
You mean stretched out to compete for a rotation spot is Aaron Ashby, which means he'd have to overcome, I guess, Eric Lauer.
Right.
Which, that's not that big of a lift, but Eric Lauer did finish the season strong, so I would imagine he has the leg up in that competition.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, Adrian Hauser's in the rotation as well, might be a little bit more cemented in that role, but
it may just be a matter of time before Ashby gets a spot. Somebody gets hurt, whatever.
Right.
I don't think it's wrong to draft him. I just wanted to like if Ashby had a guaranteed rotation spot, he might be, the 60th pitcher draft.
You are on the clock.
And he only threw 95 innings last season, but he did throw 126 in 2019 in 24 starts. So, there's precedent for him being used as a starter. So it's not necessarily like he's a guy that they can't really use as a starting pitcher or someone whose innings are going to have to be severely limited. I would guess he's probably not going to, if he stayed in the rotation the whole time, he probably wouldn't throw 180 innings, but it's not out of the question to think Ashby could throw 160. And we've seen the Brewers, get that out of Freddie Peralta. His minor league numbers are just okay. A lot of strikeouts, but 3.75 ERA.
There was a skills
walks.
jump last year, throwing harder, and I believe
control was still bad though.
The slider
his slider
became a wipeout pitch for him.
Yeah, but even then, 4.41 ERA. It's AAA, but it's not the PCL. So Nashville's not necessarily. We're not talking about Salt Lake City or Albuquerque there.
The PCL doesn't exist anymore, Chris.
Yeah, it's the AAA West now. That's what it is.
Nashville was in the PCL, I think. Could be wrong about that. Anyway.
That'd be an awful long flight.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think it matters more in a head-to-head points league than a head-to-head categories that he might be starting because he's your ratios don't matter quite as much, and he could be a really bad whip guy based on his minor league career, but it's interesting nonetheless. You're always looking for upside pitchers.
Yep, especially at pick 240. To start round 21, I selected Eugenio Suarez, so likely to be on my bench, but between him and Matt Chapman, hopefully one of those guys works out, and I have at least a decent third baseman here. After Eugenio Suarez, RJ selects Keibert Ruiz. Oh, man, it's just great value. Pick 242 overall. And then Andrew Benintendi, Miguel Sano, Kyle Lewis. Chris selected Herman Marquez. We see Gleyber Torres, Jordan Hicks, Eduardo Escobar, and Ian Kennedy selected. Ian Kennedy signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And assuming something doesn't happen to Mark Melancon, I don't think that Ian Kennedy will earn any saves this season. Oh, maybe. maybe Melanson needs a day off here or there, but yeah, maybe just drafting Kennedy for ratios at this point and some strikeouts. Scotty, you select Frankie 2 hits.
Frankie 2 hits. Yeah. Yeah. And in a league that rewards, that offers no rewards for walks or on base percentage, I'm happy to take Frank Schwindel late like this. Don't envision him hitting 326 again. I think his batting average with the Cubs was even higher in the 340s because he had like an awful stretch with the A's earlier in the year. But he was a guy who hit for batting average consistently in the minors, and I think I've said Schwindel I think has the potential to be like a more powerful Yuli Gurriel. Obviously, he has complete bottom out potential too, as a guy who got his first shot in the majors at age 29 last year. But that's the hope for him, like a more powerful Yuli Gurriel.
Alrighty. After Frank Schwindel, Tyler Stevenson goes at pick 252. Say what you want about Tyler Stevenson, but man, that is late. That is the latest that I have seen him go in a draft this offseason. And then John Gray to kick off round 22. I like John Gray as a sleeper candidate. Finally out of Coors Field. He is on the Texas Rangers. They paid him a good amount of money, so hopefully we can see the best version of John Gray that we've seen yet. Scott, you are back up.
Yes, I am. It's between two players here. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to take... Am I going to do this? Do I want to do this? I'm going to take Connor Joe.
Yeah. Nice pick.
Yeah, I almost took Nicky Lopez instead.
Some Connor Joe.
But I came out so firmly against the Miles Straw pick. Granted, that was like, what, 4 rounds ago?
Yeah, something like that.
But I already have so many middle infielders too. It's like, yeah. Anyway, Connor Joe. I don't have as many outfielders. I like his upside. Hopefully he's the leadoff man for Colorado. And that would be, I think there's serious upside there if he is.
Scott, do you plan to just play Connor Joe when he's at home in this format?
Sure.
It's a daily line.
I mean, he's on my bench, so I don't plan to play him that much at all. But yeah, as a substitute when somebody else has a day off, if he's in Colorado, sure.
Right. After Connor Joe, we see Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. So if you do need some steals late in your draft, I'm not sure that he'll offer you much else, but starting shortstop for the Yankees, a little bit of speed.
I wouldn't be surprised. I said it on yesterday's show, but I wouldn't be shocked if we saw like a little leap in his production with Yankee Stadium as home for Kiner-Falefa.
Alrighty. Yeah, he was playing in Globe Life Field last year. It's we're still gathering data on that ballpark. It's fairly new, but it seems like to this point it's played neutral, favoring pitchers. So nice little park shift for IKF moving into Yankee Stadium. After he went, we see Harrison Bader, Mike Zunino, Michael Brantley. Chris selects Luis Patino, who he recently talked up as a sleeper on our Sleepers podcast. And then Mike Yastrzemski. It's very late for Mike Yastrzemski. 1 year ago, we were kind of excited about Yaz. And now
he was a top 100 pick or not far off this time last year, right?
Yeah.
He was like 120-ish, something like that. But
I think we were just wrong about Yaz. And myself being one of the most wrong about him. And
he is someone that I think could benefit here, Scott. I mean, he was better 2 years ago against lefties than wasn't good last year against them. So
yeah, I mean, by the end last year, he wasn't even playing against lefties. So right. I don't. And you can work with that a little more in a daily league, obviously, but you have to work,
Yeah. I hear you. All right. I am on the clock and I will take Jesus Sanchez with one of my picks. Someone prospect in their organization who has tons of power. Like getting him this late. And I also want to take another kind of reliever type pitcher. Let's see who I could find Oof. It's kind of messy at this point. All right. I don't think I'm going to be able to find anybody quick enough. So I will just select Jose Miranda. I saw the name pop up there and I was like, you know what? That seems pretty fun. So a prospect with the Minnesota Twins who was fantastic last year and maybe earns more playing time now that Josh Donaldson is out of the mix.
I like it.
Thanks. Thank you,
Wish I had
Scotty.
thought of it.
Two prospects there, prospect-ish type players. Jesus Sanchez, Jose Miranda. All right, we're off in round 23. I think this might be the last round. Yes, it is. And then we'll quickly wrap up our teams. We'll get out of here. But what else has happened? I selected Jose Miranda, Bobby Dahlbeck, Colton Wong. You know, I love me some Colton Wong. 15 homers, 15 steals, rock solid.
Frank loves him some Colton Wong.
And then I wanted to see where you went with the next line, Chris. No, I can't think of anything on the spot. After Colton Wong goes Christian Javier, another one of these swingman types. If Lance McCullers is not ready, he could be in the rotation to start the season. And then Kyle Seager.
I guess with the idea that he may come out of retirement.
Yeah. I mean, there's some
whispers.
There's some rather jokey commentary about that on Twitter, him joining his brother to play in Texas, where they just traded away their third baseman after already losing their third baseman of the future.
Ooh, all right.
But I don't think, look, maybe what do I know, right? But I
mean, look, you're probably going to cut your 23rd round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't expect that to happen.
All righty. After Kyle Seager, Chris, that's who I should have took. You know, I've only been talking him up, right? Chris selects Art Warren, so nice pick there. Lots of strikeouts last year. I think a 19% swinging strike rate. Guy has a nasty slider. It's something like 27 career saves in the minors as well. So he has worked in that role in the past. And some uncertainty with Lucas Sims, so I like that pick. And then Omar Narvaez, Ramon Laureano, Gavin Sheets with the 2 utility spots in this format. That's a solid pick. Garrett Hampson. And Scott, you're up for your last pick, sir.
Yeah. So one kind of underrated aspect or underappreciated, I don't know what the right word is. Julio Rodriguez with that Jesse Winker trade, there's not an obvious path for him to join the lineup ASAP anymore. But I'm going to take him anyway. Going to take him anyway in the hope he arrives sooner than later. Right now, the Mariners' projected DH is Abraham Toro, so he could easily be bumped from the lineup. And, you know, maybe they get Winker in the DH spot, Haniger, him and Haniger trading off, something like that. I think there's still a chance Rodriguez could make the opening day roster. And if it doesn't happen that soon, it may not be long after that.
All right. And then Mr. Irrelevant could actually be quite relevant. Matt Barnes. He could be the closer for the Red Sox. They haven't made any moves there. You know, they've talked about Garrett Whitlock, but Matt Barnes was really good in the first half of last season. Let's quickly run through our teams, give some quick thoughts, and then we'll get out of here. But Scotty, we'll start with your team. We'll work backwards here. You had the 11th overall pick. You've got Salvador Perez, Josh Bell, Jorge Polanco, Rafael Devers, Corey Seager in the infield. You've got Mike Trout, Ketel Marte, Kyle Schwarber in the outfield, Hunter Renfroe, and Brendan Rodgers as your 2 utility bats. At starting pitcher, you've got Yu Darvish and Robbie Ray. A couple of closers here. You've got Andrew Kittredge, Camilo Doval. You've got Ken Giles. You got Joe Barlow. A couple of other pitchers. You've got Blake Snell, Tyler Mahle, Zach Greinke, Anthony DeSclafani, and some bench hitters, Connor Joe, Frank Schwindel, and Julio Rodriguez. What do you think of the team?
I love the lineup. It's my favorite lineup I think I've built in a mock or real draft yet. Obviously, I'm not giving myself a chance of competing in stolen bases, but I think in this format where you're going week to week with them, I just feel like that's too much of a crapshoot for me to for me to invest the draft capital in it. I'd prefer to really dominate in power, and I should do well in batting average with this lineup too. But power, I think, is going to be the most predictable, and it has an effect on every other offensive category but stolen bases, especially when you're reducing it to week-long samples. So I love my offense. The pitching, I think I sacrificed some pitching to get that offense, but I do have a lot of upside with strikeouts, which I think is one of the hardest categories to backfill off the waiver wire. And I have 4 viable closer candidates here, I feel like, so I should, at least at the start of the year, before these guys lose their jobs, they should be competing for saves. I think it's definitely workable, the pitching staff, especially given the scoring format. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it.
Scott, the range of outcomes on your top 3 starting pitchers it's so wide, right? Robbie Ray, Yu Darvish, Blake Snell. I mean, that could range from top 5 in Cy Young voting to you drop them because they're just not performing
right.
Well. So
but no matter which way it goes, they will have a lot of strikeouts.
That is definitely fair. Chris, you are up, and let's take a look at your team. You were drafting 6th overall. You've got Will Smith at catcher, then Alex Kirilloff, Brandon Lau, Luis Arias, and Bo Bichette in your infield. Christian Yelich, Byron Buxton, Aaron Judge in the outfield. Nelson Cruz and O'Neal Cruz. Oh, going with a double Cruz at.
Yeah, I've got the cry.
Nice. That's good. I like that. At starting pitcher, you've got Max Scherzer, Kevin Gausman, Eduardo Rodriguez. You've got Carlos Carrasco, Tristan McKenzie, Herman Marquez, Luis Patino, maybe Garrett Whitlock. And then your relievers, you have Emmanuel Clase, Giovanni Gallegos, Devin Williams, who you'll leave in there to get some ratios and strikeouts. Art Warren, who could work his way into the lineup with ratios and strikeouts as well. You've also got AJ Pollock as a hitter on your bench. What do you think about this team?
It kind of feels like I'm missing a pick. I don't know if that makes sense, but it feels like, as I was going through this team and looking at it, it feels like, man, there should be like a 3rd round pick here somewhere. So that's not a great sign.
Who was your 3rd round pick?
It would have been Aaron Judge,
right?
I believe.
Okay.
Who's I think he's good.
He's a very fine 3rd round pick, honestly.
Yeah, I rank him there.
You drafted a pitcher in one of the first 3 rounds. Is that it?
Yeah, it was Max Scherzer in the
Scherzer and Judge. Is that why you feel like you're missing a 3rd round pick? I'm just
I think it's just I know he's going to perform like a 1st rounder probably, but Bo Bichette doesn't quite feel like it to me. Like having the 6th overall pick and picking Bo Bichette first, like. And it's not like there's anybody I would have taken instead. It's just kind of highlights that I think there's a drop off there that, that's the one where it feels like, a late 1st, even though I was 6th overall. So I think that's probably where I feel like I'm missing something. But, overall, I think the offense is solid all around. It's got a lot of potential, but not as many sure things as I necessarily want. And the sure things are of the Nelson Cruz, Aaron Judge, Byron Buxton variety. So not exactly sure things for a couple of different reasons. But I'm happy with the pitching staff. Scherzer and Gausman as anchors. I've got a lot of starters who I, like the potential of. I've got a lot of good relievers. So, it's the kind of approach in this format that I think can work. I've got a lot of flexibility at pitcher, especially because I only have 1 bench hitter. And I think that's probably the way you want to approach the head-to-head categories format. I think you probably want more pitchers on your bench, especially in the daily format, because you want to be able to mix and match those relievers when your starters aren't out there. So that's the approach I went with. I think it's fine.
All right. I will
not the best team I've drafted.
Pull up my team. I was drafting 1st overall, and I've got JT Realmuto. I've got CJ Crone, Jazz Chisholm, Matt Chapman, Tim Anderson in the infield, then Eloy Jimenez, Yordan Alvarez, Lourdes Gurriel in the outfield, Eddie Rosario and Shohei Ohtani as my utility bats. Then at starting pitcher, I've got Brandon Woodruff, Max Fried, Logan Gilbert, Pablo Lopez, Alex Cobb, Alex Wood, Potentially Aaron Ashby as well. At closer, I've got Ryan Presley. I've got Mark Melancon. Maybe David Bednar. Nobody else. Only 3 closers. All right. I usually like to wind up with more closer candidates than that. So that's probably something I would have liked to do better. A few hitters on the bench. I've got Eugenio Suarez, Jesus Sanchez, and Twins prospect Jose Miranda. I like my offense. I don't love it. Jazz Chisholm is someone I don't really draft all that often.
Your offense is like you have so many. You have like a couple of really high batting average guys, and then a lot of like batting average liabilities, including your first rounder, Ohtani.
Yeah, I mean he's could hit like 250, 260.
You know, Frank, you going through your lineup, I think made me realize what I didn't love about my team.
What was that?
That missing pick, I think, is the catcher.
Right.
You know, I have Will Smith. You have JT Realmuto with the fifth overall or the 5th round picks, and like they're not. It's not that they're bad there. It's not that they're bad values or bad hitters, but it does. Yeah, it feels like when you look at your overall team, it just feels like something's missing, and you have. I guess you either have to remind yourself that you have that edge at catcher, or you know, at least for me, this may be the way I'm looking at it, is at least in this format with such a shallow starting lineup, maybe I don't love the idea of making, you know, the catchers, except for Salvador Perez, you know, a focal point, because it's not clear they'll give you enough of an advantage in the categories format. And points, you know, I think it becomes a little more clear because their counting, their numbers should be a lot better than everyone else's, but in this format, it definitely feels like I'm missing a hitter.
No, it's a really good point that you bring up. It's, you know, when you can get Mitch Garver at pick 184 versus, you know, Will Smith in the middle of the 5th or JT Realmuto with the first pick of the 5th round, it's, you know, just weighing those two. And, you know, maybe instead of having Matt Chapman as my starting third baseman, I could have selected a Nolan Arenado there or a,
I don't know that Chris loves that, but
well, but you know, the like, if Marcus Semien had slipped one spot and I had him instead of Will Smith, and I had, you know, Marcus Semien and whoever at catcher, I probably like that a little more.
Yeah, I agree with that. That as emphatic as I am about drafting Salvador Perez this year, part of the reason is because generally I'm not about it at catcher. So I'm not about it so much with Will Smith or JT Realmuto. I'd have to get them at a clear value.
Yeah, I think Smith, and I pushed for Smith like 17 picks above where I have him ranked, I think. So it was, you know, I mentioned at the time that I was just trying to see what it looks like. Turns out I don't love it.
Yeah, I don't either. So I had the option to take Marcus Semien, and maybe that was the answer because, you know, I would have had a better second baseman than Jazz Chisholm, and you know, could have just drafted one of those catchers that went really late, and Keibert Ruiz and Tyler Stevenson. These guys all lasted pretty late. The pitching, I like the pitching. I don't love it. I think it's fine. You know, I've got
remember Shohei Ohtani's part of it.
That's the point, Scotty. Yeah. So makes it look even a little bit better. Yeah. So lengthen out the depth there at starting pitcher. Got the 2 anchors, play some matchups with the Giants guys. So I think the pitching is actually better than the lineup, but yeah. Catcher is tough to take early in head-to-head categories. I think that's one of our main takeaways here today. All right, we're going to wrap up. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching this mock draft edition of Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.